Ooh, welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict. Frank, I forgot to put you on the other one over here on. Ooh, welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict. I know how to use a computer. I am one of your hosts, James Montemagno, and with me, as always, the one, the only, the most gorgeous man that I'm looking at right now, Frank Krieger. How's it going, buddy?
Out of all the men that you're looking at, I'm the most gorgeous. Great. Thanks, James. Thanks for the backhanded compliment. Hi, James. It's wonderful to see you. Welcome, everyone, back to Merge Conflict. I missed you all. It's been a week. How's your life?
It's been a week. I was in Guatemala for a wedding, and it was absolutely fantastic. It's good to be home. But yeah, Guatemala, absolutely awesome. And the wedding was the craziest wedding I've ever been to. So it's like there was stilt dancers.
Oh, that's quite a skill. I didn't even know that was a skill to have, but somewhat envious now.
There were pyrotechnics.
Oh. See, the stilt dancers I get because like I've been doing housework and I kind of wanted stilts the whole time. So like that's a skill. Don't really need the pyrotechnics. Don't need to set the plates on fire.
There were really cool like LED blinking lights or sunglasses that you got and like cool foam hats. It was wild.
Are you sure you didn't go to a rave? Are you misremembering what just happened in the last week?
There was a lot of dancing. There was also a bunch of live bands and also like a live DJ set. And it was kind of absolutely amazing. And
cool.
the couple that we went were, we just became friends with them in the last year. And yeah, they're just like so cool. And the wedding was awesome. So it was really, I'm glad we made the trip down there. It was pretty nice. It wasn't too bad of a flight, actually. Guatemala actually isn't that far from us. It's not that far.
It turns out the Americas tend to stick together. And it turns out you can just go up and down. I don't know. I should do it more often myself. But I do love, I got to see more of the Americas myself. You're making me a little jelly.
Yeah, we really want to go. Over there's like Belize and a few other countries that we want to go. And once you're over there, well, maybe we'll go to some other countries. So anyways, if we have any listeners in Guatemala, thanks for being a listener, and great country, and excited to come back one day. There's lots of volcanoes, lots of hiking volcanoes. We didn't get to do that, but they're active. It's happening.
Okay, again with the pyrotechnics, man. I don't need that. I need the calm water, like an oasis. Just nice, nice and calm. Maybe a waterfall. That's as spicy as I get.
Well, it has been a week. There's a whole beautiful list of things that we're going to talk about today. Is there any internet controversy that you want to talk about, or should we skip over any internet controversy?
Oh God, have I not been keeping up? I can't even think, like, the controversies come and go in waves. I think there's a trial going on. I'm trying not to pay too much attention to it, but it's hard not to watch a little bit of high profile trials with some companies that start with an O and end with an AI.
I have seen those.
Fun to watch that stuff go.
That commentary has been interesting. I've been trying to watch like the dailies of that. Very fascinating. I have missed the first few, but it does seem that there's lots of distillation happening and people are confessing to things and all this stuff, which is fascinating. That's of interest.
But no, sure. I don't think there's any like blue and black, gold and yellow, white dresses happening or anything like that. I think, the controversies aren't too crazy. The AI world has completely moved on. Everything you knew last week is irrelevant. It's all changed.
As always. I mean, that's a new week. There's new skills to be learned. I think someone maybe asked us like what skills we're using. I gotta look up. I will do a listener bag. Maybe if you leave comments on any of our videos on YouTube, we'll do a listener bag. We have some good questions and good tweets coming in, I think. But someone did ask us a little bit based off our episode that we just did. We were talking about some of the pricing changes around AI. And one of the things that I had mentioned was that one of the kind of, cool benefits of some of these harnesses is not only the ability to use frontier models through the service that you're paying for that are readily available. So all of them have them, right? Whether you're using Codex or GitHub Copilot or Claude Code or Open Code or Cursor or whatever, they all have them. And many are the same. Obviously, some are also multi-providers, right? With GitHub Copilot, you get a bunch of different stuff from different providers that are out there and custom models as well. But one of the really fascinating things seems to be that you can do something called bring your own key when you're using the service. And bring your own key, or BYOK, as we often call it, is the ability to say, I would like to use this other service over here to route all my queries through. And that may be specifically maybe an API key with Anthropic or with OpenAI or maybe Microsoft Foundry. And you would be paying those providers for the token usage, however their billing is, right? And you would just use GitHub Copilot. You wouldn't use the models from Microsoft, right, that are available through GitHub Copilot. You use them through these other services. And you might be saying, well, those all three sound like models that I might already have. So why would I do that? Well, the real reason I think is also to use a bunch of other models out there that maybe you don't necessarily have access to. And a very popular one is called Open Router. And Open Router allows you to navigate through and have a whole slew of things. Now, obviously, with Bring Your Own Key, the tuning, and I'm very interested in your usage of the next thing I'll talk about, but I'm going to go long here, and then we'll get into the thing, which is the biggest thing. Preach. But the system prompts, right? The prompts that are being sent, like the VS Code team, the Copilot CLI teams, are finally tuning those and the tools and stuff like that, right? As much as they can. They're open, you see them. Obviously, there's going to be a general system prompt for these other providers. They don't know exactly what you're picking necessarily. But then there's this other option, which Frank Krueger, I did a video on. Ooh. I'm gonna look it up here. Let me go through my video history. Let's see, Copilot CLI, this, that. I got to scroll for a while. I'm scrolling.
So many videos, everyone. Who keeps up? Raise your hands if you keep up with James.
Here it is. 1 year ago.
Wow.
It was called Bring Your Own Key and Models to GitHub Copilot and Visual Studio Code. And I talked about Bring Your Own Key, but also running local models with Olama, or now you could also use Foundry Local. So running local agents and local models on your machine, instead, which you wouldn't have to pay for anything because it's on your machine.
Yeah. I've gone down every single one of these rabbit holes now. With the great pricing apocalypse. I just wanted to feel out the world and see like what kind of pricing can I expect out of different services and all that stuff. I did want to make one joke though about Open Router. Open Router is so bring your own key that within Open Router you can bring your own key. So you can bring your own Open Router key, but within Open Router, you can bring your own key in there too. It is such a weird, messed up world because Open Router actually merges all these different providers together. It's very funky, to be honest. Yeah. I've been rocking the DeepSeek model right now because it is stupidly cheap. They're running this promotion where it's like 75% off the price, and the price is already cheap. And so 75% off that, I was just curious what I was doing. So I did like a full day of work on it, and it cost me like $2. It's like, wow, that's a pretty good deal. That was like 60 or 80 million tokens total. I was burning through the tokens, and they have a good context length, and it was just a couple bucks. So I was trying to bring your own key thing. So I still rock everything through VS Code, chat, AI chat, agent chat. I don't know what the feature's called anymore because I used to call it Copilot chat. Is it Copilot within VS Code? I can't keep all this straight, James.
It's just chat.
It's just chat. Just chatting, man.
Just chatting.
Yeah, because Copilot's GitHub's thing. VS Code is more generic. VS Code has an interesting implementation, though, where in general, you have to get an extension if you want to add models to it. So it's a little bit funny because you were mentioning like generic prompts and such. All the model providers out there have kind of adopted the same API. They all just copied OpenAI's chat completions API. But oddly enough, VS Code doesn't allow you to just plug into that. They really want you to get extensions and do funky stuff because they assume that every model wants to be tailored. It's all a bit of a joke, but whatever.
Are you sure, Frank? Because you can go into
model manager, add
model manage model manage.
Yeah, manage your models.
Manage your models. Now, that being said, I will say that extensions can bring their own models into the mix as well.
Yeah.
So you go
add
in
model, and there's going to be a fixed list.
You have your language models, and it has all of them in there. So you have your opuses, your sonnets, your GPTs.
Yeah.
But there is a add models, which has a drop down for Anthropic, XAI, Google,
Yep.
Open Router,
Sure.
OpenAI,
Yep.
Olama,
Mm-hmm.
OpenAI compatible, and Azure.
Oh, maybe that's an insider one. I'll have to check out the OpenAI compatible one. I hadn't noticed that. So that's good. Thank you, VS Code people, for doing that because
So my assumption is if you install an extension from a provider like Cerebras or something like that,
yeah.
then they would just basically pre-configure with that.
Yeah. And honestly, it was getting a little bit annoying because we're to the point where there are so many AI shops out there offering models as services too. They're providing the full everything. And they all have adopted the OpenAI API. So, yeah, I guess like they're all still a little bit weird around how they do thinking and stuff like that. But in
Mm.
general, they all kind of provide the same API, and you can just plug into them. So yeah, I've been trying out all the models, man. Like I have put $10 credits into like every person out there. I probably should be doing everything through Open Router, but I wanted to get a feel for all the different providers and see how they work. And I've been pretty pleased. I got to be honest. I think I'm still falling back to like the codecs and the sonnets of the world.
Hmm.
But I've really been enjoying just taking taking a break from the norm and going out and trying the more wild side of everything. So BYOK has been fun for me.
Okay, so when you go in and you add a model, let's say you're adding this, I don't know, how'd you do DeepSeek? Was that an extension or something?
Yeah, so DeepSeek has their own extension, but it's a plugin for the chat window, basically.
Oh,
That's yeah.
that's what I was going to ask. So it shows up and it just shows up in the model selection.
Yeah, it shows up it shows up too many models in the model selection is to be thoroughly honest because
Hmm.
DeepSeek decided to be a proper provider and offer many kind of models, not just the DeepSeek models.
Oh,
So honestly, the UI needs a bit of work because DeepSeek just threw in like a billion models into the list, and you can just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll to find all the stuff that you want. But yeah, that's the
interesting.
general idea. These extensions can just add models to that list. And I don't fully understand these rules, but sometimes models added to that list are hidden by default. Other times they're visible by default. I don't fully get it. So if you add an extension looking for a model, you don't find it, go to the model manager and you can make it visible. Or if you have too many listed there, go make some invisible because there can easily be too many.
Got it. That makes sense. So I think that's what the important factor is that in general, like the chat window in VS Code is a chat window, like all up, and it has all
Mm-hmm.
these integrations and ecosystem into it. I still think you need a GitHub Copilot subscription even to use that.
Perhaps. It's hard to say. I don't know because I do have a GitHub Copilot subscription, so it's hard for me to say. But I do watch my GitHub Copilot, and the number's not going up. Like the requests
Correct.
aren't going up. But I don't know. Like subagents are always kind of a weird thing. Like I don't know if it always uses the model I chose for subagents, or does it ever use something else as subagents? You know, I wonder about little details like that. That honestly, I just don't know myself yet. I think that I think VS Code being VS Code, there's a million settings you can choose. I just don't know how the defaults work exactly, to be honest.
Let's see. Copilot search says yes. Bring your own key and GitHub Copilot VS Code only available to certain tiers.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but you connect to your models provider and you're billed through them. You do not consume your GitHub Copilot quota.
Yeah.
Perfect. Gotcha.
Fast.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is how a
So
lot of
yeah,
the other apps work, like Open Code and Cloud Code and all the. I'm not sure. Can you do it in Codex? I'm not sure if that's available.
I don't know.
Um, yeah, me neither. Sorry, everyone. I'm still living the VS Code life. I I love VS Code. I'm sticking around in there. But VS Code is more than just the chat window. It is what everyone's calling the harness these days. I hate that term, so I tend to just call it agent because it took me a while to come around to agent, and I prefer calling things agent. And what agent is basically is a bunch of system prompts and a bunch of tools for editing files and But other little basic things like memories and
Hmm.
plans, modes for plans, and things like that. So that's the agent to me, but a lot of people call that the harness because the word agent got overused a bit. So what's interesting is when you do choose like a model, and I'll just keep saying DeepSeek just because my brain's um, stuck there for some reason. You're still using the VS Code coding agent harness. It's still their system prompts, it's their tools and all that stuff. So my little MCP tools that I've added to my like settings file, they all work just fine. So the models really have been commoditized quite a bit.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, I think that the ability to just go in and then do this and then even run things like we'll talk about locally is very fascinating because obviously,
Mhm.
you decide to um, get billed in one way or another, or ideally even not get billed at all. I
Yeah.
actually just installed the Foundry toolkit for VS Code, which is for Microsoft Foundry.
Right.
And if so, this is one of those like DeepSeek that has like a bajillion
Right.
models. So I'm looking here. I'm
Yeah.
looking. We have CodeStroll, Cohere command, DeepSeek R1, V3, V3 3.2, V4
Yeah.
Flash, Llama 4, Meta Llama, Mistral Large, all the GPT models. So I would get billed like through this stuff, basically,
Yeah.
I assume. And then those are GitHub models via the toolkit. And then there's Microsoft Foundry models, which
Yeah.
are like Haiku and Opus and Sonnet and Codex and
Yeah.
more. There's like, oh my gosh, there's Grok and Llama. I have to actually like, there's a bajillion there. Yeah, there's tons. That's crazy. So they're
Yeah.
all
And
in there. Wow.
And if it's a bit overwhelming, I agree with you. It's a bit overwhelming. So you can go to multiple websites out there have kind of like shootouts, or they try to rank these models for different
Mm.
tasks. Obviously, the only task I care about is coding. So and the normal ones generally win, but there's some upstarts doing pretty good. The Kimi gets a lot of good reviews. Minmax, Mimo, all sorts of throw a consonant and a vowel together, and there's probably a model out there with that name on it, and you can try it out. But yeah, those are all still paying for stuff. You're still paying for a service. You're going over the internet. You said something I got interested in was like, well, what if I don't want to pay anything? And what if I just want to turn off my internet? Can all this stuff still work? And it can, James. It can.
It can. Yeah. Okay. I'm interested because I did just also have that in my video, but I feel like I made that video a year ago. And my assumption here is that the models that I can run on my machine have dramatically changed between then and now. So I'm really fascinated to see how that goes. Because
Yeah.
I also literally just installed, like again, that Foundry toolkit. I feel like I
Yeah.
installed it a while ago, but I didn't go into the model selector. Now
Right.
it makes sense as a model provider. And there is a bunch of groupings, and one is called Foundry Local via AI
Ooh,
Toolkit. And there is
cool.
all the DeepSeek models, GPT OSS, Mistral, Phi Silica, all the Phi models,
Yep.
Quen, all the way up
Quen,
to
my buddy
3.
Quen.
Yeah. So, and it shows you if there are capabilities of vision or tools or, what their context window is. So, help us, Frank Kruger, understand
Okay.
what you needed to do and what that experience was and what type of hardware you're running it on. Because right now I'm on my Windows laptop, which is running something I don't even know. I can see what it's running. Let me go to the task manager, and it is currently running a what is that, CPU, an AMD Ryzen AI 7 Pro 350 with a Radeon 860M GPU.
I don't know my Radeons very well. I
I do have an
apologize.
NP. I have an NPU.
MPU,
Yeah,
motion
neural
processing
processing
unit.
unit.
Oh,
Yeah,
NPU.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, in some ways, what you probably did a year ago is not too different from today because In the world of open source models, we all still kind of upload our open source models to Hugging Face, and there's billions upon billions of them up there, all with the big names and everything. I would say the biggest change, James, is that the models have just gotten better, like
Mm,
to a scary level. So I remember just a few years ago, all I could run on my kind of max were the 7 billion parameter models. And even those were kind of slow because the software wasn't tuned for them. People were happy to just get them working. They're like, oh my God, look, a local large language model running on my
yeah.
computer. Isn't that cool? Yeah. Well, this past year, people have just been obsessed with the engineering aspect of just making bigger models run faster. And it's
Mm,
glorious. I've been waiting for this time to happen for so long because, like, yeah, all you got to do is throw some engineering prowess against these things. They're just big calculators, just people love writing calculator code. Just make better calculator code, people. And so, what has happened is the models that are available are better, and the things that can run them can run bigger models and in a more sophisticated fashion. So, and I was a bit out of the loop also. So I wanted to take this last week and try some things out and just see how they feel. So I was living in the Opus world, just for context. I spent all of April, checking what month it is. I spent all of April living that Opus life. It's my buddy, it's my friend. We get along great. But then I spent a few days running the DeepSeek, and now I've spent a few days running Quen. Quen, Qwen. It's a 27 billion parameter model. The ones that people like are Quen version 3.5 and Quen version 3.6. It's well understood these are not the greatest coding models out there. But on my hardware, which I'll get to, you can run 256K context windows, which is
that's pretty good.
huge. Because
Yeah.
even with Opus, VS Code was limiting to me to like 192K before it did like compaction and that kind of stuff. So a 256K window locally is really impressive. Like, it blows my mind, James. When I work on that cuneiform project where I'm training large language models. You know what the largest context window I could put onto that was? Just guess.
Maybe like 20K.
512.
No, no.
0.5Ks. That was the biggest I could get on there. Because that was 32-bit floating point math, and it was
Mm,
doing all sorts of complicated things. And the engineering has gotten to the point where I can do 262K. It's just impressive.
that's crazy.
So, we both have Mac Minis, kind of overpowered Mac Minis, so we can talk about those. But I'll talk about yeah, there she is. Isn't she cute? What I've actually been running mine on is I've had an RTX 3090. Anyone who's
Mm.
ever listened to me talk about things, it's my favorite GPU ever. I've had it for a few years now. I love using it for everything. But truth is, it's just been sitting there idling, doing absolutely nothing for the past few months, just because I haven't been training neural networks or anything. So I'm like, the reason I like the 3090 is it has 24 gigabytes of VRAM, RAM, whatever you want to call it, fast RAM built into it. And 24 gigabytes can actually run these 31 billion parameter models if you use 4-bit quantization. So that is, we are using 4 bits for every parameter in the model. So you need roughly 15 gigabytes in order to run these models. And then you need the other 9 gigabytes for your context and your output and all that kind of stuff. So I went through the process of installing llama.c++. It's one of my favorite runners out there. You've already mentioned Olama is a good choice. Kind of the industry standard is another one called vLLM. In the Apple world, there's MLX now. There's runners everywhere. People have gotten the religion of optimizing these things and installing them. So I went through the process and I wrote a little blog entry about it. Everyone can follow along if they want to. Go to my blog, pricklerum.org. And I give all the setup instructions. It was easy, Jane. Download the model, pass a few command line arguments, be amazed at how port forwarding still doesn't work in the year 2026. try to get your stupid network into good shape, try to figure out what incantations VS Code wants, and all of a sudden I chose Quinn to start with. Um, it was there. It was just in VS Code, acting like an agent, running sub agents, doing planning mode, running with autopilot because life's too short to care about permissions and all that kind of stuff. And I had it analyzing my code right away. And I want to talk about like my experience with it, but that's pretty cool that I was pretty easily able to just get this thing up and running. This software has really advanced, I think.
Yeah, no, I think when the team first started adding that feature, it seems like an advanced feature because we're talking about hardware requirements and GPUs. The 3090 is not cheap nowadays. Maybe back in the days of yore, but being able to plug in an API key or plug in a thing, that's relatively straightforward, but it's still running remotely. But having something running on your machine, that you could be on a plane, you'd be disconnected, it's just sitting there ready to go, is really magical. That being said, there is still some education because, like you said, you have to install a thing and to get this thing and then do some port forwarding stuff. But that being said, as far as the steps go to get that required and then it just kind of works, is a magical feeling at the end of the day. It's kind of like when you get like an Android emulator up and running. You're like, whoa, look at that thing. And then you're like, wow, it's how you run. It's like, wow, that only took 8,000 steps and a bunch of pieces of software installed and a bunch of SDKs to download. Then boom, there it is. Great. You did it, right? But that's really neat that one, it's built in, it's just ready to go. And then that you're able to figure it out seems relatively straightforward.
Yeah, I think what made it so comfortable is I didn't have to switch out of my normal workflow because over the past whatever months, I've gotten very used to using the agent chat and everything in VS Code. I know how it works. I know what to expect out of it. And it was so weird to just see a model that I knew was running because, you know how I knew it was running? Because I could hear the jet engine on the other side of the room as every fan on that RTX spun up. You know what optimizing a model runner really means? They are pushing that video card as hard as it can possibly be pushed. And that means power usage and that means fans, thermal regulation. So, like, I do a lot of network training and I hear the fans on that thing. I have never heard it screaming the way it screams when I ask VS Code chat thing to go analyze every single file in my repo and report back every bug it finds. It just starts howling. But uh, so that was just such a satisfactory feeling knowing, and I even did that funny trick of I disconnected from the internet. Obviously, my network was still up, but I disconnected from the internet just to prove that everything was happening locally, and it was beautiful. So model quality, though, I think this is kind of the big one. We are running compromised models here. For one, they're much smaller than even like Sonnet. I don't know how big Sonnet is, but it's probably 5 to 10 times larger than the Quen 27 billion parameters. It's probably like 300 billion, something out there. And on top of that, I'm running a compromised version of the model. I'm using a quantized version of the model. So 4 bits per parameter when usually you have 16 bits per parameter. And then I'm compromising it even more. The context that it's keeping and the output buffer it's using are also quantized. Those should all be 16-bit. They ain't. They're 4-bit also. That's how you get the big context out of it. You quantize everything. You really compress it down. But at the same time, James, I can't really tell the difference between Opus, DeepSeek, and the stupid 27 billion parameter model running on my other machine. And I don't know what it is because if you asked me a month ago, I'd say Opus forever. Don't you take the Opus from me ever. And now I'm just like, can I even tell the difference between any of these models? I'm starting to get very suspicious of myself. And so honestly, for the past day, I've just been like running the same prompt on like 6 different models to just see what happens with all of them. So I do want to say, okay, it's slower for sure. I'm getting like 40 tokens a second. I think DeepSeek, you get like 60 tokens a second. Opus, you get 3 tokens per second. Just kidding. Opus is fast when Anthropic wants it to be fast. Other times it's horrendously slow. It's a big jet engine over there, and it does make mistakes once in a while. But you know what? Opus makes mistakes once in a while. It's sometimes bad at file merging. This is like, you can tell where the VS Code harness and prompts aren't perfect, because like it keeps messing up how it uses the file read tool. It's like, oh, the file read tool needs line numbers, I guess I'll pass it line numbers. Like, yeah,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
you just done that in the beginning. Like, there's these funny little things, but like it figures it out. If it just, every session it has to figure it out every time, but it figures it out. And I don't know what's wrong with me or the world or what's going on, but I have been so satisfied with these tiny little models. And I'm pretty sure I'm not deluding myself, but like, I think it's just the systems that we've developed, like good agents files, doing planning first, asking questions, and then the coding part just becomes kind of rote once you've kind of approved all the plans and everything. So aside from the slowness, I honestly can't tell the difference between my little local model and a sonnet or something like that out there, or a small codex. And I've also been trying, Google has Gemma or Gemma, I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it, uh, Gemma 4. And that's a great little model too. It's hard for me to tell the difference between Quen and Gemma. You go to all the websites that benchmark these things, they all use that stupid SWE bench. Benchmarks are all a joke, everyone. Just put that out there. But
It's true.
you know, the graph says this one's way better than the other one, but then in practice, you're like, I don't know, they're all making my job better and my life happier. And aside from the fans roaring, it's really hard to tell the difference. So I've been really excited by all of this.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I mean, I think the biggest thing that I had a while ago was the speed of it, but I was also, I forget what hardware, maybe I was running it on my Mac Mini, I'm not positive. But mostly the speed of it. You know, I use a lot of GPT models, which are quite fast, especially in Copilot, they're like hosted in Azure, right? So they're got speediness to them and agency. And then, or some of the smaller models, like a Sonnet or like a Haiku, are quite quick, right? Compared to an Opus. So I'd use a lot of those models all the time, and to me, the speed is one factor, but also correctness and being able to read
Sure.
and just the answer at the end of the day is like, is it correct or is it not? I've been doing this trial since the beginning of the month. I posted about it, which is I'm not picking any model manually by hand anymore. I'm only using Auto Model, which Auto Model well, it seems to be different per each tool. But on the trip to Guatemala, I only have my phone. And as you know, on flights and long layovers, now that I have Starlink on Alaska, I do a crap ton of coding. And I do it all with the cloud agent, the GitHub coding agent, the cloud agent. And the default is auto. So I just let it YOLO. And then when I got home, I said, I'm only going to use, I mean, when I say only, I mean like 95% of the time, unless I need to switch something because something is just not clicking. But inside of VS Code and now inside the CLI, you can just, and VS, you can just hit auto. And based on like, it's not based on your prompt. It's based on like availability and a few other factors of the model. It will pick a model. Often this is like a Sonnet model or a GPT model, but it really just depends on time of day, XYZ, and they give you a little bit of a discount, 10% off for using auto. And what I like about auto is that if it's based on availability, that means it's probably pretty quick, and it's moving really quick too because it's not being stressed. And I'm trying to figure out, and the reason for this experiment is how much does the model matter? And this is exactly that you're doing, right? And I do believe that the models do matter in some instances. So what I'm trying to comprehend in my mind is, when does the model matter?
Right.
When does the reasoning matter? Because it's so easy to default into models that we think are the thing that's good for this thing, compared to just saying, maybe they're all pretty good, and then just kind of YOLO it on the auto model selection. Now, When I mean auto, I don't mean autopilot. I don't mean bypass. I mean, like, there is a drop down that says auto and just go, and it will pick from the
0.9x,
available
baby.
models. 0.9x and just let's rip, right? So you get that little sweet discount and go to town there. So I'm trying to do almost the same experiment, but
Mhm.
obviously running, foundation models in the cloud, but kind of the same thing. Does the Gemma, does the Quinn, does the DeepSeek model, how much of it does it make a difference? There's probably, I'm interested in this, like, was there a point, I know it's only been like a week or so, but has there been a point where you did switch back to Opus or Sonic? Because you said in the beginning, like, you were still favor these models. Favoring
Mhm.
is not the same as using or having to use them. Has there been a point so far where you're like, you know what, I'm actually going to switch to this other model because my house is getting too hot?
I kinda like hearing it spin up. I keep making fun of the fan noise, but, like, you feel like you're a power user. You're like, "Hey, rename this variable," and then jet engines start up. You're like, "Oh boy, that's getting really renamed over there." Um, I First I wanna say I really appreciate, like, the auto thing because I think that's the biggest lesson I wanna take out of this. I don't even wanna promote, like, local models are the way to go necessarily. More, I'm just realizing how important your processes and systems and the information we give these models, just how important that all is. But to answer your question, I've had zero interest in going back to the big provider models. Um, every so often you have like a little Tweety bird in the back of your head saying like, I
Mm,
wonder if Opus would have solved this already. Or, every time it introduces like a little bug or something like that, you wonder, would Opus have made that mistake, or would Sonic
yeah.
or would Codex have made that mistake? But in the end, like, who cares? It's free. I just tell it to go fix the mistake and it goes and fixes the mistake. It's the same UI and everything. So I think maybe it's maybe too soon to know whether I'll switch back, and probably I'll switch back because I'm going to keep paying for Copilot and I'll use some credits there. Where I'm really going to use Copilot is the cloud stuff, like you
Yeah.
mentioned. Because what I found is when I'm being truly productive, I'm using issues on GitHub and PRs on GitHub and using the cloud models. That's when I'm getting like my six things are happening at once and I'm being ultra productive. The model I'm using on my dev computer, it's okay because I'm usually thinking through a problem, or I'm in a greenfield application and I'm doing design work. I'm not trying to implement a feature or fix a bug. That's all happening in on the
Yeah.
web, and that's just happening in the background. I'm having a discussion with the AI, and it's okay if it takes a second or two to have its little discussion, and I don't mind that. So I think that that's actually where I'm going to kind of settle. Like for my dev machine, I might just keep cranking on the 3090 and just enjoying trying different models too. Just getting out of the hegemony of Anthropic and OpenAI. It's fun to use these open source models. They're all different. They have different capabilities. Um, you know, what they'll allow you to do and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll put it this way. We are at the 5th of May, not too much behind the scenes on how our recording schedule. And I have used 0.6% of my Copilot credits because I've just been rocking these local models and it's been fine. And I have felt very little need to go to the bigger models. That said, when I use the cloud based models, that's when I'll probably be digging into my Copilot credits
Yeah.
or tokens, whatever they're going to call them after June.
Usage.
Usage. That.
Usage. So yeah, that's really that kind of gets back to that ecosystem play, right? And we're doing those GitHub Copilot Dev Days, and I kind of talk about that, like the ability to tap into the ecosystem, tap into other model providers, tap into other, harnesses, if you will, and being able to use things on the plane, on your computer, in the terminal, on your phone, all these different
Mhm.
areas, assign issues, do these things. And that's how I use it. So to me, it's not about one tool, it's about the combination of all the tools. Now, what's fascinating is like we're going to use those tools and then we're going to use different models in different instances based on where those tools are running, right? Because if you're using a cloud agent, it's going to be running and needs to talk to cloud stuff, right? So
Yeah.
that's really, really, really interesting in general to think about.
So
I
I want to talk
yeah,
about performance a little. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, yeah. I was going to
Okay,
ask, like, did
so
you have a
yeah.
specific thing around models, performance, outputs that you were leaning towards? Because you talked about the different ones and that you're
Mhm.
wanted to explore with more. But yeah.
Yeah, and I've been doing AIs forever, and people keep talking about tokens per second, and I honestly don't know like what's a good number. Obviously
Mm,
bigger's better. That much I know. But is 40 tokens per second tolerable? And what I've discovered is it very much is. You definitely get annoyed with the thinking loops that a lot of these
yeah.
reasoning models can get into. There's a lot of people who are just turning reasoning off because, like, it's faster for it to make a mistake and you correct that mistake than watch it think in loops forever. It seems these
Mm,
things really seem to get into cyclic loops and all that kind of stuff. So I think that there are benefits to turning that off. But 40 tokens per second, it's still faster than I can read. So when it's editing code, it's plenty fast. When it's pumping out text for me to read, it's faster than I can read. So it's fine. Now that 40 is again with the model quantized and all that running on today. I think the 3090 is a $1,500 GPU. Uh, but we both have Macs, and you can take that exact model, same quantization, everything, run it on the Mac, and you're probably going to get like 17 tokens per second, which again is fine for text, but when you have like sub agents going and reading your entire repository, too slow. When you have it thinking in loops, too slow. So the 17 is really bad. The good news is, James, in the last week, all of this has really been improving. There's a new technology out there, MTP, and I'm trying to remember what the stupid thing stands for. Multi-token magic MTM. I forget what the P stands for. It's this like predictive. Oh, maybe it stands for predictive, where there's actually these models have smaller models that are just kind of dumber, and
hmm.
they're just guessing what the next few tokens are going to be, and then the big model just checks whether the next few tokens should have been those things. And it turns out this cooperative way of doing inference is faster. So you have a little stupid model doing a bunch of predictions, and then the bigger model is actually validating those predictions. And both Quen and Gemma support this.
Oh, cool.
And the new software out there, there's on Mac, there's MTPLX, which uses the oh my god, it's too many libraries. It uses the MLX library, like a fork of it to do this, where it does the intelligent thing, where it has a stupid model running ahead and doing
Mm,
stupid predictions, and then the bigger model validating. And
cleaning it
then
up.
this is something Google invented, by the way. So everyone just like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's take that. And so Google just released that feature for Gemma, which already was a powerful model, but now it's fast. So now you can run these models, these 30-ish billion parameter models, at 60 tokens per second on our Macs,
Mm,
James. So I'm telling you, that's plenty fast because even a lot of the service providers out there for the big models, they're only giving you about 60 tokens per second between network bandwidth and them being overloaded by DOS attacks and all that kind of terrible stuff that they have to deal with. 60 tokens per second is plenty fast enough. And it's really cool that just in the last month, I would say, this new technology has come out and is really revolutionizing inference speed.
that's crazy. Well, I do want to ask one thing because not everyone has a 3090 sitting around, Frank Kruger.
Mm.
And the real question becomes like, what if I just have like my Mac Mini or more realistically, maybe a MacBook Air that's sitting over here? Like, I
Yeah.
think I almost want to follow up next week, which is like, what can you do on your MacBook Air inside of a coffee shop, right?
Yeah.
What could you do on your Mac Mini that's over here? Because I don't think realistically it, that going out and asking people to buy a 3090 to run
Right.
these models is going to
Yeah.
be realistic, because then I would just spend that on token usage, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Um, More realistically, what I'm really fascinated about is maybe running smaller, tiny models as subagents automatically so they don't use
Yes.
tokens. Or maybe there is hey, this one works really well on the Mac Mini. And so I'd love to see a follow up article, which is, hey, you have this, but here is how you can use an optimized model based on the hardware that you have. Because
Hmm.
some people like us have our beefy, how many gigs of RAM does this thing have? Like 64,
I went with
128?
64. I can't remember what you went with. I think you went
64
same.
then.
Yeah,
Whatever you got.
64.
And then I got
Yeah,
the
cool.
2 terabyte, you got the 4 terabyte. So we got this, right? So this isn't even
Hmm.
realistic because many people aren't going to buy this configuration. They're going to buy the base model, which is 16 gigs of RAM, which means it's more realistic on our M1. I know it's a different M4 Pro, but M1, which is a 16 gigs of RAM on our little MacBook Air. So the question is like, what could be a good optimized model? How would you run it here locally versus running it on this
Yeah.
thing here? Because I think that is a more realistic scenario.
Yeah, 100%. And I even make that point in my blog because I price out what would it cost to build a 3090 machine these days, and it's about
Mm.
$2,000.
Oof.
And $2,000 gives you 10 months of the highest tier of Claude Code,
Yeah.
that or yeah, I don't know, what's the most expensive Copilot, like $40 a month, so that's
Hmm. A lot.
50 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can I'm not even going out there and saying, "Go build a machine," or anything like this. But what I do say is, if you have a machine like that, it would probably be
Yeah, there you
amazing.
go. But I'm
And
also
the
interested in, I have a bunch of machines. I don't have that
yeah,
machine, but I do have like little, I have to imagine our Mac Mini, it's got to be doing something. Did you run any models on
yeah.
the Mac Mini directly?
100%. Yeah, I have been. So I have mixed feelings about it because our Macs do a great job running it,
Yeah.
but it is definitely eating at the memory and it's eating at the GPU. So you're slowing down basically everything else on the computer. And the fan turns on my Mac Mini. Every time the fan turns on in the Mac Mini, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to hurt you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. The RTX can start a fire back there. I don't care. Burn, baby, burn. But my little Mac Mini, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, are you getting too hot over there? So that's probably stupid of me. But probably the biggest, weirdest change that I've seen in AI since I started is in the beginning, we were all compute obsessed. How fast is your computer? How many flops
Mm.
can you do? Today, that's almost irrelevant. All anyone cares about is how much RAM do you have and how fast is that RAM, because these models are so big. The reason the 3090s, 4090s, 5090s are nice is because they have 24 gigabytes of the RAM, and therefore these small models are small. 30 billion parameters can fit on them. Um, because we have 64 gigabytes, you can fit some even bigger models. But it turns out like the model makers out there, the small models are about 30 billion parameters. And then the next step up is 300 billion. There's not
Mm.
really an in between ground there. So you definitely can take like the Quint 27 billion, run it on your Mac, and it's going to run great, but it is going to use all the resources and you are depleting your dev machine and you'll notice hiccups here and there. Like I had YouTube music playing in the background, and every so often you'd get like some static because the poor
Wow.
little processor is cranking away. And when you go to activity monitor, you see the GPU usage at 90%. You're like, ooh, okay, we are burning this puppy. And then it becomes a thermal game, like everything else. It becomes a thermal game. So yeah, it's
I
it's a
think,
mixed bag running these things yourself.
yeah, I think that the bummer part here may be, and I could be wrong, but the Mac Mini does not support eGPUs. So you can't just like plug in an external GPU into your Mac Mini.
Yeah, I agree. And, I've actually run eGPUs with Macs in the past, and that's even a bit of a mess, to be thoroughly honest.
Hmm.
Thunderbolt is fast, but you're sending so much data so fast to make these models work. It's a little bit weird. One of the reasons MTP is such a good technology is it actually keeps a lot more of the data on the video card before it ever has to get back to the CPU.
Mm,
They try to do like their sampling on the video card. People don't think about it, but these are probabilistic models. For every vocabulary word out there, it's giving a probability that it's the next word. And something has to take that list and sort that list and take the top K, then do the top P off of that top K. And that is a serial operation. That is not efficient on a GPU. GPUs are parallel devices, and that is a giant serial operation that has to happen. And so for unoptimized models, there is a very huge cost we all have to pay if you're running these things yourself, where lots of memory has to be copied down from the video buffers into CPU buffers. Unless you have a unified memory architecture like on a Mac. Then
yeah.
life is good. I think some of the Windows ARM computers have unified memory architectures too. I just know less
Interesting.
about them than M's.
All right.
All right.
I am going
Well,
to try something on my Mac, that's for sure, because I do have it just sitting here ready to go. I think it's fascinating and do want that little fan to spin up on occasion.
yeah.
But I do also want to point out that you can actually do this in the CLI now too. You can actually configure. I don't think it's as simple, but I know Kayla Cinnamon on hers went out and um, has a whole thing about how to configure Olama and run it as the select the models that are running there
Sweet.
inside the CLI as well if you want to run it in the CLI. So it could be cool too to give it a try.
Yeah, and I think it's just one of those. Here's the real deal, James. I never want to go back to writing code in the old way anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't like the idea that my ability to code is dependent upon paying someone a service fee every month. I don't love that. So, what I like about all of this, and it's really more of a mental thing than anything else, to be thoroughly honest, is I feel like I'm back to I myself in my little office without an internet connection can still code again in the way I prefer to code these
Yeah.
days because coding has gone through a transformation in this past year and I don't want to go back. It's just, I'm over it. I want
Yep.
to stay
Me
in
too.
this world and it's a little bit of a liberation to run these models yourself and to see okay they're good enough. I can still keep doing my planning, keep doing my agentic workflows. Feels good.
I'm glad that we changed you over. Took a little bit, but we got there, Frank. And yeah, I'm excited for the year ahead. I mean, it's only May, and who knows? I mean, for me, I think what the next steps here as we wrap up is it's more feasible than ever to use these models locally and combine them with the ones that you're using on the cloud and the different services of where you're doing your coding and how you're coding. And what I'd love to see even progress even more is for all of these bits and pieces to come together. And I think they have come a little bit together in the form of extensions, but I would love to see that ecosystem unify even more. Like I feel like we have the capability of building some sort of GUI or some sort of thing that really streamlines these processes and makes it easy to configure and connect all these different harnesses and tools that we're using out there to make it easier than ever. Like that's what I would kind of expect because that would then enable more individuals to do that or maybe just build it into the tooling. Like I do think that there is something good and something bad about what Apple did on their machines. And I guess technically even on my Windows machine, there's models that are running locally for all the AI stuff. But it is like, do I want to install this thing? And one thing that might be fascinating is there a future that I see, which is streamlining this process to say, okay, download this model, like easier configuration wizard is what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
there's all these libraries, all these things. Like how do we streamline that bit and piece?
Unified I'll just take because I'll be honest, I have like 6 different model runners on this computer, and they all store the models in different directories, and I have models everywhere on this hard
Yeah.
drive, and it's just eating all my gigabytes, and I want my gigabytes back.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go organize these, so I have to run my grand perspective to go find all these stupid models.
That's great.
So I'm hoping at this WWDC Apple comes up with some unification for having like background services and good things that can. It's tough because sorry, we are trying to wrap up, but like we're still in the wild wild west here. Innovation is happening, so you don't want to prematurely unify and prematurely standardize all this stuff. It's fun having everyone competing against each other for speed and all that, and I don't want to lose that competitive spirit. But it is a little bit exhausting, so hopefully within a couple of years it'll all be unified and standardized.
I'd like to see it. Well, let us know if you're running a local model, where and how you're running it. Maybe you have a 3090, maybe you don't, like me. And then what are you running it on? Let us know. Go over to our YouTube, youtube.com/@mergeconflictfm. And that's a great way to leave a comment on this episode or any of our past comments. And we'll do a listener bag episode. There's quite a few chimed up, so we'll get it going. So let us know. But that's it for your local edition of Merge Conflict. So until next time, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.